Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session, the session which is organized by Chandigarh Judicial Academy in collaboration with SCC Online. I'm your host for today's webinar. My name is Chetan Singh, and with me I have Honorable Mr. Justice Anil Kshetrapal sir, who's a judge for PNH High Court. Sir would be taking this session. The session is on the Specific Relief Act and the Amendment Act of 2018. Like we already know how we go through this entire webinar, Sir would be detailing the entire aspects of all the aspects of this Specific Relief Act, Amendment Act 2018. And then once Sir has detailed the entire thing, we will get into the question answer round. For now, I have disabled the questions, and the question answer portion or the section will get enabled at 11:30. So if you have any question, I would request you to please keep it noted down, and we can start posting at 11:30. Without any further ado, I would request Sir, and I'll welcome Sir and request Sir to please start the session. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Before I start my deliberation, I would add two caveats, and these are: number one, I am a student of law. Number two, interpretations are always based upon opinions. My opinion can be right, my opinion can be wrong. I am here just to trigger that discussion and then take it forward. Now, as everybody knows, since I am addressing all judicial officers, there has been significant and tactical amendments in Specific Relief Act. And I would say these are substantive in nature, and there is a paradigm shift in the framing of the act, and now the statute is leading us to give more specific performances rather than, because now the discretion has been taken away. As everybody knows, and everybody would be curious to know how it has been taken away, I will just explain. But today's session I have divided into three parts. First part is amendment with regard to section 6, which according to me is again a very significant amendment. Second part is with regard to injunctions, where the powers of the courts have been curtailed. And third is with regard to specific performance. Now let us first start with section 6. Section 6, if anyone has that BEAR Act, would notice that there is amendment, and the words through whom he has been in possession or any person has been inserted. In simple words, what has been added is that if a person is in possession of the property through someone like brother, some relation, licensee, tenant, representative, whatever manner they are, even and that representative who was in actual possession has been dispossessed or forcibly dispossessed, then the person who is actual owner or who was in deemed possession because of his representative being in possession, he can file a suit under section 6 for restoration of possession. This was a gray area because there were various interpretations saying that if someone was not in actual physical possession, section 6 and is dispossessed, section 6 does not apply. As everybody knows, section 6 is talking about summary suit. You have to the person has to prove that he was in possession or he was in settled possession and he has been forcibly thrown out. If he successfully proves it, the court is bound to grant him decree for restoration of possession. In such suit, question of title is not involved. It's only a summary suit. The court can decide the summary suit merely on the basis of affidavits. Now, this is the first part of amendment, which is, I think, is important. Second part, which is with regard to injunctions, is there is a significant amendment when the statute has added section 20A, 20B, and 20C in part 2 of the specific relief act. Basically, these three provisions provide that if a suit comes to the court and injunction is sought for with respect to infrastructure projects, then the courts would not grant any injunction. The effort is, and the object behind this amendment is that infrastructure projects should not be stalled because of litigation in the courts. So section 20A has been added, and the language which has been used is such that the courts should not, the word are, no injunction shall be granted by a court in a suit under this act involving a contract relating to an infrastructure project specified in the schedule.
Sir, do you want me to share that BEAR Act on the screen for everyone's reference?
Certainly, I had requested, if it is possible, please do it, sir.
I'll just do it, sir.
Yes, now just kindly look at section 20A. It is on your screen. I have already read that section. Now this is the basic, then there is a schedule added, and the infrastructure projects have been listed in the schedule, which is, can you just go to schedule at the end of the act? Yes, this is the schedule. With respect to transport and transport, road, bridges, ports, shipyards, inland waterways, airports, this and that, then energy, then water, sanitation. These are all where the courts have been now prohibited from issuing injunctions, because effort should be that the projects are not stalled, and they progress smoothly. Now, these are the two aspects which have also been taken care of in the amendment. Now, the third and important thing, which everyone is waiting for, is amendment in part 2 of the specific relief act, which is with regard to specific performance of contracts. If you just kindly show on the screen section 10.
Section 10. So
can we go to section 10?
So section 10 is on the screen now.
We are now at section 8 of the amending act.
So can you see the section 10 number, sir?
No, you will have to scroll down, sir. Scroll up, sorry.
So is it okay now?
No, it is section, I'm talking about section 3 of the amending act. I'm sorry,
Section 3. Okay,
section 3 of the amending act.
So there we have it, sir.
Yes. Now, please notice section 10 has been substituted. Now, please note the difference between substitution of the section and the amendment of the section. Section 10 has been totally substituted. If we just have a look at old section 10 under the unamended act.
So I'll just open that as well.
Just if you can.
So this one are we talking about? Section 10 of the original?
This is amended act. If you can go to.
Okay, you want the original one? So
yes,
the original one should be here. This is the one. Sir?
Yeah, this is the one. Now, if you kindly see that it starts with that in the discretion of the court. In the very first sentence, the word used is discretion of the court, that is in the second line. So previously under the unamended act, specific performance of the contract was discretionary. It was left to the discretion of the court whether to grant decree for specific performance or not. Now with the amendment, this discretion has been taken away. Can we go back to amended section? Chetan?
So here we are.
Yes. Now see, section 10 does not use the word discretion. It talks of the specific performance of a contract shall be enforced by the court subject to the provisions contained in subsection 2 of section 11, section 14 and section 16. That means now specific performance of the contract shall have to be enforced only subject to subsection 2 of section 11, section 14 and section 16. Now the next amendment in the same line is in section 11, which is in section 4 of the amending act. Again, the word may in the discretion of the court has been deleted, and now the word used is the contract shall. Similarly, the next section which has been amended is section 14, which is by subsection 4, and the list which was earlier provided for non-performing the contract or non-ordering specific performance, that list has been now reduced. And if you kindly notice, subsection 14 within bracket 1 within bracket A has been deleted, and subsection 2 has been totally deleted, 3 has been totally deleted. Now entire effort is, as I have told you in the beginning, that discretion of the court, and we should now tactically shift, the court should tactically shift towards granting specific performance rather than denying it. Now the next amendment which is significant is in section 15, which is with regard to inclusion of limited liability partnership, that we'll discuss later on. There is a significant amendment in section 16. Please see section 16. There is some change which from what we have been always looking at. Initially, section 16C provided that a plaintiff was required to aver and prove that he was always ready and willing to perform his part of the contract. Aver means he has to plead and then prove. Requirements were plead and prove. Now, by amendment, the words ever has been taken away. That means the plaintiff is required to prove. So merely because there is no assertion in the plaint that the plaintiff was always ready and willing to perform his part of the contract cannot be a ground to throw his suit or deny him the relief of specific performance. I am repeating, now by amendment, there is no requirement that the plaintiff must plead that he was always ready and willing. However, there is a caveat. He has still to prove, he has to lead evidence, prove that he was always ready and willing to perform his part of the contract. I am once again repeating, it is not that because the discretion has been taken away, every suit in which the agreement to sell is proved, consideration is proved, must be decreed. The court is required, the presiding judge is required to apply its mind, examine the facts of the case, examine the evidence, and then come to a conclusion whether the plaintiff was ready and willing to perform his part of the contract or not. So still the court or the presiding judge is required to appreciate the evidence, appreciate the pleadings, and thereafter come to a conclusion whether a party is entitled to specific performance or not in the facts of the case. That is where the work of a presiding judge comes into being. Because otherwise, agreement to sell proved decree. Now, that's why I'm stressing on these things. Even if there is amendment is only to the effect that the discretion has been taken away. But still, the presiding judge of the court is required to apply its mind, examine the facts, examine the evidence, examine the circumstances, examine everything, and then pass the judgment, decreeing or denying relief. If the court comes to a conclusion that yes, he was not ready and willing, still, even if the suit agreement to sell is proved, the suit is required to be dismissed. Now let us move to next section, which is amendment in section 19, which is again with regard to limited liability partnership. We'll come to it later. Now, most significant amendment is in chapter 2 and the subheading, which has been now substituted. Earlier subheading was, can you just show me the unamended act, sir, Mr. Chetan?
Which section, sir?
Index of the specific effect of unamended act.
So this is an unamended act?
No, this is index would be of amended provisions only, na?
Okay, sorry.
Can you? Unamended act, I think I can.
So you can just tell me the section number we are referring to.
I was just trying to draw their attention to a caption of that part. I think that can be seen from
19.
Just a minute. Just see. Please go back to the amendment act.
So
9. Section 9. Yes, we are there. Now kindly see. Previously, the subheading was discretion and powers of court. Now it has been substituted with a substituted performance of contract, etc. So discretion wherever possible has been omitted. Now we come to most important part of this amendment, which is section 20. Section 20 of the Specific Relief Act 1963 has been substituted. I am again stressing this is not an amendment. Section 20, the old section 20 has been deleted and it has been substituted by a new section, that is section 20. So change is old section gone, new section has come into being. So once there is a new section, now this is the only section available. So there is no amendment as such. I am just trying to stress upon this is not an amended section, it is a new section. There is a substitution, something has been replaced. The basic purpose of section 20 is that previously the courts were well within its powers to decline the relief of specific performance even after finding that agreement to sell is proved, payment of consideration is proved, plaintiff was always ready and willing, still the courts could exercise discretion in the facts of the case and decline relief. But now that power ceases to exist. That power does not exist from 1st August 2018, that is the day on which this act has been enforced. We'll come to judgments and I will share with you. I have searched 2-3 judgments, whatever I could search, that whether this amendment is retrospective or prospective, whether this amendment is applies to pending suits or it doesn't apply, whether this amendment would apply to a suit which has been filed after the 1st August 2018 or it will apply to suits instituted previous thereto, will go to that thing. Then next amendment is on infrastructure projects. I have already discussed. Now, as far as these two provisions are concerned, this amendments on in section 20 is concerned, there are 2 judgments of the court as of now which have examined this issue threadbare. One judgment is by Allahabad High Court. If one is interested, please note down the citation. This is 2019 within bracket 135 bracket close, Allahabad Law Reporter, page 884. It is also reported in SCC Online Allahabad. One can note 2019 SCC Online Allahabad 5523. And the name of the case is Mukesh Singh and others versus Saurabh Chaudhary and another. In this judgment, after noticing the amendment, what is the effect of substitution, whether it is a procedural law or a substantive law, the Allahabad High Court has held that this amendment is applicable to pending suits as well. The court has gone on the premise that specific relief act is a procedural code, and since section 20 itself has been omitted, it does not exist in the statute or act. Therefore, now the discretion is gone, and in pending suits also amended provisions would apply. I can share with you, there is one more judgment of Kolkata High Court which has dealt with this aspect to some extent. That judgment is in the case of Church of North India versus Right Reverend Ashok Biswa. It is reported as 2019 within bracket 2 ICC page 533. In this judgment, the Kolkata High Court has examined section 14 of the Specific Relief Act and stated and held that since specific performance is to be, degree of specific performance has to be granted, and the court is to examine that fact on the date of judgment and decree. Therefore, this amendment would be applicable. These are the two judgments which lay down that pending suits, this will apply. Although it is too early a stage, it's an open-ended discussion and interpretations would flow in. But according to my view, these judgments lay down the correct law. But this is my opinion only. I am only giving you what is in my mind. Rest all depends upon ultimately how the consensus is arrived at. But there is a contrary view which has been taken by a division bench of Karnataka High Court. I could not get its citation, but I can just share with you its details so that if one is interested in reading, please download. The judgment is dated 23rd October 2020. It is in the case of Sri M. Suresh. Sri is SRI M Suresh SURES SH versus Shrimati Mahadevamma and others. This is in RFA number 1560 of 2011. In this judgment, which I have, the Karnataka High Court has gone into the issue of that since it is a substitution, therefore, and one, it is substitution, and second, the act has not been made retrospective by the legislature, therefore it is prospective. The division bench has discussed various judgments of Supreme Court, and that's why I've said that still it's too early a stage to give any final opinion. But yes, now the judgments are coming, and things would hopefully settle within short time. There is one thing which I need to apprise you all. There is a Supreme Court judgment differentiating between substantive law and procedural law. If one is interested in reading, please read that judgment on Land Acquisition Act. It is reported as 1994, 5 SCC page 593. Name of the case is KS Paripuran versus State of Kerala. In this case, the question was whether the amendments which were brought in by 1984 in the Land Acquisition Act 1894, whether they are prospective or retrospective. There the Supreme Court discussed, and it's a larger bench of the Supreme Court. Now, one more important thing which I must share with all of you before I close is that initially when the 1963 Act was drafted, the entire effort was that wherever it is possible to grant alternative relief, that is in the form of refund of money, damages, or wherever some compensation could be granted, the specific relief should not be granted. Now, as I have said, there is a planned, tactical, intentional shift from previous regime to a current position. Current position is that now specific performance of a contract is a normal and denial thereof has to be an exception. Previously, the things were reversed, although by judicial interpretations now of late specific performances were being granted, but legislature has amended the act and amended it. Amendment has came into force year and a half back, and therefore now, according to my view, specific performance should be granted wherever possible, provided, yes, there is a very big proviso. Proviso is that the plaintiff proves execution of the agreement to sell. He proves he is ready and willing to perform his part of contract. 3, he is not guilty of breaking the agreement. If he is able to prove all these things, then specific performance is required to be granted. Now, this is all. Rest, I think Chetan would now open for questioning and.
Yes, sir. I think I've already opened the question answer section. So for all the members who are on this webinar, I think we have almost like 400 members plus who have joined in. So we have got the first question, sir. So I'll just ask you that question, put that question before you. Sir, if a suit is dismissed by a trial court prior to coming into force of the amendment, however, when the appeal comes for hearing, the amendment have already come in force. Now, since the appeal is considered as a continuation of the list, should the appellate court have reference to the earlier act or the amended act?
This is exactly what has been discussed by Allahabad High Court. The Allahabad High Court has said that since appeal is a continuation of suit, the amending act would apply. I am repeating, this is my opinion, subject to whatever final opinion comes, and interpretation is always based on opinion. So I have given you my frank opinion. It's a still open-ended question, open-ended interpretation. It is still a debatable issue. Debates will continue, and let us see how the things turn out.
I think, sir, which I totally agree. And I think this question was asked by Sumit Garg, sir. So I believe even Mr. Garg would agree to this, that the purpose of having all these webinars is to, sow the seed for discussion so that we can all discuss, usually which we don't get the time to. That's and we are just encashing on this pandemic, situation wherein we have now been made aware of these new softwares like one that we are using right now as well. So I think we are all on the same page, sir. So is there any other question, members? I'm sure a lot of things have already been discussed. And I like the way, sir, because I think the questions would have been, there, has been taken care of, because once you start comparing the original and with the amendment, I think all that questions which would have been there otherwise have been addressed. But if we still have any question, we have time, we can address it. And as far as the citations are concerned, sir has shared a lot of citations. I usually what I do is I type the citations while sir was doing it, but because my screen was being shared, I couldn't have left that screen. But having said that, as we all know, this the recording of this session is already would be available on YouTube and also on the Chandigarh Judicial Academy website. So You can read on it, and all the section that sir has shared, you can just go through it and note it down if you have missed any. I think we don't have any questions as of now, sir. We have one more question. So the question is, what is the scope of amendment in appeals pertaining to the cases of agreements prior to amendment in which specific performance have been declined, but alternate relief of the recovery of the earnest money has been granted by the lower court?
I think it is covered by my first answer. Basically, as a appellate court, you are rehearing the suit. Once you are rehearing the suit, you are one is entitled to amendment, as well as the new act would apply.
Yeah.
This is my view. That's why I've said that I have shared both the judgments on the both sides. Calcutta High Court as well as Allahabad High Court have taken a view that it's retrospective, it is applicable to pending appeals, pending suits. On the other hand, Karnataka High Court has taken a different view, which says that no, because the question there will be 4 or 5 questions, and that's why I'm once again repeating. First, whether it is applicable to pending suits. Number 2, whether it is applicable to agreements which were executed after 1st August 2018, because date of filing a suit, whether it will be important for such amendment. And as I have discussed and told you that Calcutta High Court has taken a view that no, for a suit for specific performance, the court is to analyze evidence and give judgment on the day of judgment. Therefore, filing a suit, date of filing a suit is insignificant. So that's how, as appellate court, you will have good challenges before you. Let us see how you apply your mind and because I can share with you one more thing, which see, the contract or agreement to sell between the parties is not under Specific Relief Act. The agreement is under Contract Act. There is no amendment in the Contract Act. Yes. Contract Act is a substantive law. This Specific Relief Act is only a procedural law for enforcing those contracts. Another one judge has gone to the extent of saying that it is a remedial law or a redressal law. So that's why I have said that according to me, it's a procedural law. And if it is a procedural law, and now since section 20 does not exist in the statute book,
the original
one, it doesn't exist. Now, please tell me, how would you rely upon that section when you're deciding a case? So this is all. Let us see how the things progress and develop. I am also waiting. Everyone should be waiting, and I would like that everyone should give his own reasoning, and then ultimately let us see how the things develop.
We have a couple of more questions, sir. Yes. This is from Neeraj Goyal, sir. I think Neeraj Goyal, sir, is pretty active on a lot of our webinars. Sir is asking if the appreciation of facts and evidence court comes to the conclusion that specific performance can be granted by passing a part of the consideration is proved and alternative relief of the recovery has not been claimed, then whether in such situation alternate relief can be granted or it cannot be granted.
This is again a very, very debatable thing. Mr. Goyal knows what is the law on the point. There are 2-3 Supreme Court judgments which have given there is some difference in opinion, but I would only say that as a judicial magistrate, civil judge or a presiding judge, one has to do substantive justice. For substantive justice, You are entitled to mold the relief. Order 7 enables you to mold the relief and grant relief. If someone wants to have citations from me, I will share it with the Judicial Academy. You can, both the views are possible, because earlier view was that even if alternative relief has not been claimed, still it can be granted. Subsequently, without noticing previous judgment, there was a view to the contrary. So let us see when the ultimately it is resolved. But my personal view is that a court or a presiding judge has all the powers to mold the relief.
So I think this just proves the same thing what you said. It's debatable, and that's what even the high courts are. That's why they're having a different views, because it still stands debatable.
That's right. This is what I'm saying, that it is ultimately the court is required to do substantive justice.
Yes. So, moving to the next question, sir. So it says whether infrastructural projects include private infrastructure projects also, or it is only includes, or it's only restricts to the government projects.
Let us see the section. I don't think it is only restricted to government infrastructure projects. The words, the amended act does not use the word government. It is talking about only infrastructure projects.
Yes.
Contracts involving infrastructure projects. And if we go to schedule, it does not talk of government. So wherever there is a private contract, somebody is, say, laying down a power line, or a canal is being dug, or some road is being laid, private road is being laid, such projects should not be, no injunction can be granted.
Okay, sir. Okay, now let's move to the next one, sir. Let me take, which is, okay, this one. So, after amendment, can alternative relief be granted in any situation, or the suit can either be decreed or dismissed?
Yes, it's a very, very good question. That is what I was looking for. Alternative relief can be granted. There is no prohibition. It is not that in all suits the decree must be granted. If ultimately the court comes to conclusion that it is unable to record a firm finding that the plaintiff was always ready and willing, or the plaintiff was at fault somewhere, then alternative relief can be granted. That's why I have stressed that amendment no doubt takes away the jurisdiction of the court, but still section 16 has not been substituted. Section 16 is intact, but only except that pleadings are not required. Pleading that he is ready and willing is not required. Otherwise, section 16 as it is has been kept, but for small amendment. Therefore, the presiding judge is required to examine the facts of the case and then pass appropriate decree.
Okay, sir. So this is a question, but more of a situation, a scenario-based question. At the time of agreement to sell, at the times the agreement to sell does not bear the signature of the buyer, and the writings passing the money consideration does not bear such signatures, and huge amount of money is parted without proving the source thereof. Whereas the signature or thumb impression of the seller are there, and he raises the plea of fraud in obtaining those signatures or thumb impressions. Now the question comes over here after this situation is whether the signature of the buyer are required on the agreement or they are not required at all.
See, this is all based on case law. The interpretation of courts has been that the buyer is not required to sign agreement. It is not necessary. If it is there, very good. If it is not there, because agreement to sell can be even oral. So once the buyer or the prospective buyer is saying that yes, there is an agreement, he has given me in writing, his signatures are there, that is sufficient. But then the buyer would be required to lead evidence to prove that agreement. But as such, you can't throw a suit on the ground that buyer has not signed or prospective buyer has not signed. It can be only signed by the prospective vendor.
So
I think that answers.
I believe yes, but because the name is not mentioned, the person who asked this question, the question answer is still open. If in case there is sir who has asked this question, if you still have need more clarification, you can ask the following question with that, a follow-up question with that. So moving to the next one. First of all, the person who has asked this question has passed his regards to you, sir, and have mentioned very categorically that he's highly indebted for the session for sharing all this information. Moving to the question, is that in one execution of specific relief judgment, one party comes with the objection that it has another judgment regarding the same sued property, and it is with regards to the recovery of money, and in pursuance of which he has also got the same property attached. How will both judgments regarding same property satisfy?
See, in second suit, if my memory is correct, he has said that there is a recovery of alternative recovery of money only.
Yes.
Then it's very easy that recovery of money has to be paid to the decree holder of that wherever, because specific performance is always a conditional decree. Balance amount is to be deposited, that will be paid to that decree holder, and the person in whose favor that decree for specific performance has been granted, that will be, land would go to that fellow. That means the seller or the prospective vendor had entered into two agreements. In one, there is a decree for specific performance. That means the land is that decree holder is entitled to land. Whatever payment is to be made by that decree holder who is getting the land, that will be paid to the decree holder in a suit for recovery.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Now, moving to the next question, sir. If a road is being constructed, and by constructing the road, it is encroaching upon the land of a person, then what remedy would the person have? Because as per there's a statement as well that he cannot seek injunction against the infrastructure project.
Then he can seek damages. He can seek compensation for taking away the land. Only thing is the power of the court to grant injunction in order to stall the project has been taken away. Rest powers, remaining powers are still with the court. The court can always grant damages to him. That someone has taken away his land, or someone has damaged his property, or there is a severance in the property, because there are lots of projects where road is carved. The farmer is left with small pieces of land on both sides,
yes,
which are not usable. So damages can be granted.
I have a personal example of this. I went through the same.
Oh, there is a provision in Land Use Act which talks of compensation for severance.
Yes. Moving to the next one. This reminded me of my own case. So moving to the next one, that is, what about the doctrine of election after amendment, where first gives notice for the refund of the earnest money, but later files suit for specific performance?
This is all subjective, but according to me, once someone has elected for refund, then he has foregone his right for specific performance. It's election. Once he has made a conscious decision, then he cannot be allowed to take a U-turn and come back.
Yes. Sir, can a party claim only alternate relief on the basis of contract without claiming specific performance of the contract in view to the substituted provisions?
Answer is yes, but there are ifs and buts.
Ifs and buts.
One is that that party should not be at fault. Number two, it will depend upon the evidence which is led. But according to my view, it is not necessary that a person who has entered into an agreement to purchase must seek first specific performance, and in that suit he must seek alternative relief. One can straightway say that, all right, if he's not entering, that vendor is not honoring the agreement to sell, please give me my refund or double the money, whatever is the agreement.
Yes. But I think, sir, what you said in the starting, that he cannot take U-turn, like going back onwards, but depending on the scenarios and depending on the situation that comes forward, then obviously he can take different measures. So, sir, now the questions are, I think the question that I'm left with are all about infrastructure, defining infrastructure projects or how it is legal or not. So I'm going to start with the first one. If the infrastructure project is illegal without acquisition of the property, it goes on. What are the remedies with the owner of the property if injunction is not granted?
See, non-grant of injunction is not the end of entire thing. Only thing is the legislature has prohibited the courts from granting injunctions. Injunctions are for stalling the project. If ultimately the court comes to a conclusion that the infrastructure project is illegal or entire thing is, then the court can reverse. It can set aside whatever relief has been sought for, it can be granted. Only thing is that the court should not grant temporary injunction as well as permanent injunction. Only injunction has been restrained, and injunction is only to stall the project. Rest, damages, setting aside, everything is available. Declaration decrees can be granted that this project is illegal. Once it is illegal, then it goes out.
Then it goes out, exactly. Lose out all the benefits that it would have got otherwise.
You have all the rights of restitution. Under section 144 CPC, you have got all the rights. Suppose a road has been laid. Ultimately, the court comes to the conclusion that this road has been illegally laid. You can direct that he can remove the carpeting, and the land would be restored to the owner. Similarly, a tower has been installed in his land, in the farmer's land. If ultimately the court comes to conclusion that it has been illegally done, you can order removal of tower and land will be restored.
So talking about the tower, will the installation of electric wires by the electricity department will also be considered as an infrastructure project?
Yes, this is specifically noted in schedule. Because transport, energy, water sanitation, communication, social and commercial infrastructure projects. These are the 5 heads under which enlisted.
Yeah, and if you're talking about electricity, then electricity wires would be a part of it.
Right.
By
electricity generation, electricity transmission, electricity distribution. So transmission, distribution covers everything.
Yes. Sir, moving to the next question. No injunction can be granted in contracts relating to infrastructure projects as per section 20A subpart 1. But the definition of the infrastructure projects given under the act is very wide. So how can we just go about it?
This is again subjective. You have to interpret it. You have to see whether it is covered or not, because why it has been made such wide is only to guide the courts not to interfere in the infrastructure projects, because this is creating obstacles in the growth of the country. It's hampering.
Kshetrapal sir, can you hear me? I think I just lost you. Okay. Kshetrapal sir, can you hear me? I think we're facing some internet issue. Just give me a moment. I'll just get it fixed. Give me a moment, everyone. So I think we're just getting sir's internet. I think there's some internet issue. So we're gonna get this sorted. In the meantime, I've got the last three questions that I have to ask sir. So sir will just rejoin again and we will take it from there. I think sir is
Yes.
back now. Yes, sir.
Yes, it is basically it is the presiding judge who has to evaluate whether it falls within that schedule or not. Because his question is right. It's a such a wide because if one reads the schedule, it covers almost everything.
Yes.
So it is your discussion, sir.
Sir, we spoke about the the illegal projects. We spoke about the electricity wires. Sir, I think I'm losing you again. Can you hear me? So I think we just getting there's a person over there at Kshetrapal sir's residence, and he will be fixing it up. And there we have it. Sir is back online. Sir,
I think the software is telling us that it's enough.
I don't look. It doesn't look like from the question answer. We still have like 3-4 questions left. I think
Sure.
then we can take
let us try to take up all these questions.
So I think I'll move to the next one. I think we've got the answer to the that it covers everything, anything and everything under the sky. So I think it's about the discretion of the member how we interpret that particular thing, sir. So I'll move to the next one, sir. Now this says that whether the hardship of a defendant can be considered while deciding the suit.
According to me, yes. Hardship, because see, section, that's why I have stressed on the word that section 16 has only been amended a little bit. It has not been deleted. And the court, as I have said, is to do substantive justice. Therefore, yes, there is a reduction in the discretion. I would not say that entire discretion is gone. The court is required to apply its mind and grant decree. If in hard cases the court does not grant relief, it would be inequitable for such persons. So therefore, if you can't grant relief on account of discretion, you can go to section 16. After discussing section 16, one can try to find some evidence, if it is there, that the plaintiff was at fault or something was not known to the defendant, then one can grant relief.
Okay, sir. So we spoke about the the government projects and the private projects. There was a question, but now this question is going further deeper into it. The question is that will situation be same in case Gram Panchayat is constructing a community hall in the Abadi Day and plaintiff is asserting his possession on the same. Can we grant injunction in that case or not?
We'll have to go to the schedule, examine the schedule. Schedule is not talking about community center or community hall. It is infrastructure project. And kindly see item number 5, social and commercial infrastructure. It is not that somebody is constructing a house, there cannot be any stay. Yes, there can be stay. It's infrastructure project. Let us keep in mind that what is intended by the legislation is that whenever there is something which is to be used by large number of people, it is going to affect public at large. Therefore, there should not be stay on that.
So I think I will just check the meaning, the definition of infrastructure projects, and I think that's exactly what it talks about. That focus on
schedule is clear. Schedules talks of it has divided the infrastructure projects in 5 categories, and if probably he wants to cover it in under heading social and commercial infrastructure, subject to whatever evidence is coming. I don't think this community center would be coming within the definition of infrastructure project. In a panchayat area, community center would not be affecting that much.
So shall we move to the next question, sir?
Yes.
I have two more questions, and third one is more of a, I think we'll sum up the entire session. So I will ask that question in the last. Next question is, sir, now the injunction cannot be granted. So would a simple suit for declaration be maintainable without seeking further relief, which is mandatory under Section 34 of Special Relief Act?
Yes, this is a very, very important question, and I need to clarify. Can you just show them Section 34?
Sir, of the amendment or of the version?
Specifically effect.
Okay, so just give me a moment.
Can you share screen with?
I'll just share the screen, sir. Just give me a quick moment for that. Yes. So section number?
Section 34 of the unamended act, or amended act, whatever it is. It is 34. Okay. I think you will have to scroll down.
I'll take it from the.
Yes, 34 declaratory decree under chapter 4. Yes. Now, kindly read it carefully. Let us read it carefully. That will be discretion of court as to declaration of status or right.
So just a minute. I think I have. Yeah, everyone can see it. Sorry, sir. Yes.
Any person entitled to any legal character or to any right as to any property may institute a suit against any person denying or interested to deny his title to such character or right, and the court may in its discretion make therein a declaration that he is so entitled, and the plaintiff need not in such suit ask for any further relief. This is the main substantive provision under Section 34. Now let us read proviso. Provided that no court shall make any such declaration where the plaintiff being able to seek further relief, then a mere declaration of title omits to do so. Then there is an explanation. A trustee of property is a person interested to deny a title adverse to the title of someone who is not in existence and from whom, if in existence, he would be a trustee. Now just analyze what has been provided. That if a plaintiff has filed a suit for declaration with regard to his legal character, any right in any property, can file a suit. Main section does not provide that he must ask for a further consequential relief. Only thing which there is a confusion is with reading of the proviso. Now, if we read proviso carefully, it talks of that if the plaintiff is in a position to seek further relief, then a mere declaration of title, but omits to do that, do so, then his suit can be dismissed. But that doesn't mean that if a plaintiff merely files a suit for declaration, he is not entitled to any further relief. His suit can't be dismissed because he's neither entitled to nor claims that. So effect is that if the plaintiff is entitled to further relief, he omits to do that, his suit is liable to be dismissed. But if because of amendment in the act, he is not entitled to seek relief of injunction, then his suit is maintainable. It's simple. It's basically section 34 is based upon the principle under order 2 rule 2 CPC. Order 2 rule 2 CPC says that if a plaintiff is entitled to further relief, he omits, then subsequently he can't file a suit for that relief. This section is going further, that if someone is entitled to say 3 reliefs and he only files suit for 1 relief, the court can refuse to grant declaration to him. But if he is not entitled to file a suit for further relief, then the suit is maintainable. I think that answers his.
Yes, sir. So I'll move to our screen and then let's take the other questions. So this one was done. Okay. So are mobile towers of the private companies like Airtel, Vodafone, etc. on rooftop also covered under infrastructure projects? I think we spoke about something about this, sir, a few minutes back.
Already, yeah, that's why I'm saying, please don't ask questions. Please open the book.
Yes.
Please open the schedule. Schedule is itself saying communication. So tower communication means of communication only.
Yes.
Please see infrastructure projects. The list is heading is communication.
Sir, I'll take the last question and then there'll be one question to sum up the entire session. The second last question is, if an agreement to sell the earnest money is paid through check, but the seller did not present the check for the encashment, rather sold the land to some other person, now in this case, whether suit for specific performance is maintainable?
My answer is yes, suit is maintainable because the contract, one has to go back to the definition of the contract or agreement in the Contract Act. It talks of contract for a consideration paid or promise to be paid. So check is a promise to pay. So if the seller does not present the check, it is not the fault of the buyer or purchaser or vendee. So that's why I keep requesting everybody that let us go back to our basic statutes and examine those, because I am really very happy that after my previous lecture, some of the judges have started quoting the basic provisions of acts, and that is a very, very good development. And I can tell you that the members of the judiciary in the courts, in the district courts, can interpret the provision in a more effective manner. They should develop this habit of widening their horizon and start interpreting it.
So now this question, I think, would be the I think we have answered this question in a different ways, but I think a direct answer would help everyone. And that is that what is the purpose, or rather the intention, or what was the intention behind bringing this Amendment Act? Why this was even required?
The purpose behind amending act is can be seen from the objection reasons, and one of the objection reasons is to increase the ease of doing business. We were far behind. Effort is that we should come up the infrastructure, the people should invest in infrastructure projects, the suits should be decided quickly, because if one would have a look at section 20 subsection C, now the requirement is that the suit has to be decided within 12 months. And most likely it will be reduced further. Section 20 subsection proviso to section, it talks about is expeditious disposal of suits. So objection reasons are very clear that the courts should start deciding the cases expeditiously. And that's why the commercial courts have come, procedure is being curtailed, unnecessary procedure is being reduced, and that's how the things are
being more focused and more defined now.
That's right.
So I think so that brings us to the end of the question answer round. I think that's why I wanted to end this session with this question, because this sums up the entire thing. We always talk about that what is amendment, but I think this question was required, that why this particular amendment was required. So I think you were very specific that now the time lines have been made, and to bring in more effectiveness in the present act, that was the whole sole purpose. But I think so this was, and like you said, that since your last session, members have now started, applying the learnings through your session. This is the whole purpose of this session. So this is the whole purpose of conducting these webinars.
Only to trigger that discussions and
yeah.
Because this COVID has been, we have gone through the bad time. Now things are looking bright. Let us go back to our work with as a improved persons.
Yes, and more more prepared this time.
More prepared. That's right.
I think I can't thank you enough, sir, for taking out time. And I always say this, that the session might be only for 1 hour or so, but the preparatory work that has gone in bringing the session to everyone, it's not a one-day work, it's not a one-week work, it's an entire experience that comes in. And I think that's why everyone had the same thing for you, sir, that they wanted to they wanted to listen to you, and your wisdom being shared by everyone with help of all this technology. So at the end, sir, I would like to thank you for your time, for your sharing your experience. And thanks to all the judicial members, the district judges, and other system officers if they are joining in, for making this happen, for making this possible. Because without the audience, this session will make no sense. So thank you, everyone. And on behalf of Chandigarh Judicial Academy, Ketrapal sir, I, Chetan Singhal, would like to thank everyone. And with its promise that we'll meet soon again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take care, sir. I'll end this meeting now.